We have regular meeting. Our council located on track.
Yeah, I would move adoption.
Councillor, so good on you, Councillor.
Thank you.
We have minutes to be adopted. You will see there is 2 batches of them. The first one is from September the 10th, which was the last regular council meeting. Councillor?
I have a change on that, although I would really like to be voted as being moved by Watson.
Okay. Shan, would you please make the correction? On September the 10th.
So other than that, I'd like to make
Okay, so make a motion with the amendment.
I would make motion to the September 10th, 2024 council meetings with the amendment of Councillor Jensen and the meeting.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank
Yes.
you very much. Thank you.
I'll make a motion for the
Special meeting?
special meeting town council of the Southern Grainger on the 25th September 2024.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you.
Yes.
That meeting didn't last very long. It was a few minutes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that one.
We didn't miss
Chowing
anything.
down, yeah, that's really.
Under 5, bylaw and policy, you have bylaw 15828, the utility rate bylaw. Maybe, Jeff, you want to talk to it?
So this is just a continuation of the discussion we had the first of the month. I put a sheet on your desk which just says institutional costs. There was a question, Councillor Burton, I believe, just curious about how much sewer and water was billed to the institutional. Now, one thing that Jill doesn't have on here, but I looked it up, just so you know, institutional billing, that $175,000 for sewer, is about 15.5% of total billing, and for water, it's about 17.5% of total billing. So, our institutional make up about 15.5% and 17.5% of our sewer and water bills. Just as you're looking at how you want to structure or weigh different rates on different categories. Other than that, I really just put pretty much the same backgrounder as before. There was a question as well, and it's on the very last page of your backgrounder, which is new, which is how much are we transferring to reserves, and ideally with the asset management plan, how much would we be? So the answer is we're in a perfect world, we'd be transferring another $340,000 in each utility.
At the rate we're doing it right now.
That's if we were totally keeping up 100% with the depreciation of the assets in water and sewer. So we're putting away, last year was 242,000, I'm rounding up here, and 73,000, and so we're short in both a bit. But the question was how short? And that's your answer, considerably.
Right, and if I remember the conversation properly, and Councillor Burton, let me know if I'm correct or wrong. The first thing we wanted to look at is the institutional cost, try to see if they should participate at a higher rate of return for the consumption they're using. So that was one. The other one you had is, along with Councillor Grainger, is we need to keep up with our infrastructure and make sure we reserve enough money. My part of the discussion was there's a political piece there that also cannot be ignored. Is what is the will collectively to push it at the highest level. Personally, I felt if we could get to the inflation level this year, because as you can see the curve in the package that is given, we really increased it quite a bit. It was needed, but it was quite a bit of an impact on the taxpayers. So Councillor Jensen, Councillor Ford, Councillor Grainger.
Okay, I'm reading this, and forgive me if I'm way out to lunch. But if there is the institutional water loss factor, where we pay back or meter it back a bit for the use of irrigation water for watering lawns and whatnot, I assume that's what it's for. So, okay, and if you remember 2 years ago, we had someone come that said, you know, up in the west end of town, they have those homes up there who have like large yards, and they're using town water to irrigate that. So my question is can they apply for this water loss factor?
If you remember, Councillor, when we discussed, it's going a little bit away from what we have here, but when we discussed the possibility of using non-potable water, we also had a cost study done, and a cost study was at the time prohibited. So it's not that we were against the concept, it's that the cost at the time was too much.
I think, Councillor, if I could explain that, an interesting question. So the institutional water loss factor, and that isn't explained well in the bylaw. Commercial and institutional properties' sewer rates are based on their water consumption. Okay, so they pay so much per cubic meter of water for their sewer rate. In the event, let's use the Temple as a good example. So their water use in the summer like triples, because they irrigate with potable water, but none of that water is going down the sanitary sewer. It's going on their lawn. And so the question at the time was, is it appropriate for them to have to pay an additional, a 3 times higher sewer charge when none of that additional water is going down the sewer? So what we do on some of those is we use their average winter consumption, because that gives us some idea of what the normal potable water that goes down the sewer is, and we don't charge them sewer charge on what they're using for irrigation. So that's what that's meaning for the commercial and institutional both have that. We have another situation, for example, and I'll use Southwest Concrete as a good example of this. So they use a lot of water in the production of their material, but that water doesn't go down the sewer. So they've met with us and given us an indication of how much water monthly is going into production of their good and not going into the sewer. And so we don't charge them sewer based on that additional water, only on the core water that they use for potable use. So that's how those exception pieces are working. In the case you described, all institutional and commercial and residential all pay for 100% of the water they're using. These institutional and commercial are getting a reduction on their sewer charge. So if residential properties like in the west, like you mentioned, if they are using, say, another 200 or 300 meters a month in the summer of water, they're still using all that water, and their sewer rate is not impacted by it. They pay a flat rate and it's not impacted. So we didn't do a water loss factor for residential because your rate isn't impacted. I hope that makes sense, but I think that's, I got what you're asking, Councillor.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you ever wanted to revisit the irrigation idea, Jeff will be able to bring back those figures that we had on the study. Okay. But it was, the infrastructure was prohibited at that time. Okay? All right, so are we okay? So now let's have Councillor Paula.
Just a quick question, you may not really answer. How do you compare with the surrounding communities and with their utility rates?
Sure. So I can only speak a little bit historically. We haven't done a comparison since 21, I think, 2021-22. There's a spreadsheet actually floating out there that different CAOs will capture in a year and update with about 30 different municipalities. Nobody's taken it on for a couple of years. We keep passing it around. At that point, we were on water, and again, I'm just going back off of memory about 3 years ago. We were right about in the middle of the pack on water. We were near the high end on wastewater, on sewer charges. garbage and recycling, we were near the bottom, we were on the lower end. And then we also factored in taxes on the same value of house across all communities, which put us kind of in the middle across the board for cost of living.
So our sewer rates higher because they're using lagoons and we're using it.
Correct. We have 3 operators and a mechanical plant in that.
I mean, if you compare water rates to Lethbridge, you'll see we're much lower, though way over $1 per cubic meter, way over. Councillor Grainger.
So, asset management has become, and I think correctly so, the cornerstone of one of the cornerstones in our budget. It's imperative that we put money aside now for future replacements. That's what asset management is all about. And good on the town of Cardston for doing this. There are some Alberta municipalities that are not doing this, and they're pretty soon going to have to pay the piper. So good on us for doing this. And when I see, and Jeff, I've got a question and then a concluding comment. So on that last part of the information, the budget shortfall in water, it's identified as $342,000. Is the sewer the same?
No, it's 75.
No, that.
Oh, sorry, I see what you're saying.
No, we're just evening out. Sorry, let me explain that. We put that in, and we just split the shortfall between the 2 utilities evenly.
Okay.
So it's $700 and something.
Between the 2 in a perfect world, yeah.
So even with what we're doing, if I have this corrected in my mind, even with what we're doing in terms of collecting utility rates, we're still behind the 8 ball. We actually haven't met. We're $700 and some thousand short of our goal in our asset management plan. And so that says to me that we've got to be diligent in terms of trying to catch up, or we're going to be in trouble in 15 years trying to replace utilities or whatever. So I would argue, and I looked at the numbers and I used residential water as the example because the information is all there in the attachment. Year on year, we're increasing our utility rates right now, up till now, about 4% per year. I would argue that we need to continue at least at that rate, otherwise we're going to fall farther behind. And because we are already at those rates falling behind, I would argue we should up them a little bit. And then what the mayor said about, well, at the very least, we need to be lockstep with inflation. But I wonder if that's enough. I mean, I don't know what the inflation rate is compared to that year-over-year 4%. But in this, all this is leading to a new bylaw, correct? And new rates for the next, 4 or 5 years?
Usually 3, but you can do whatever you want, but usually 3.
Okay, so for the next 3 years. And that we have to grapple with and make a decision on that. I would argue, given all of what I just said, that we, at the very least, should be increasing this similar to what we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. And notwithstanding the mayor's comment about inflation, I don't know how that compares to 4%. But I certainly would not be in favor of voting for a reduction.
Just to comment on that, I don't think we need to reduce either, but earlier on Jeff mentioned a political piece on this. When I first got on council, we were actually subsidizing the utility rates for our ratepayers. We obviously have quit doing that. So there's an expectation. I don't know how much I would at least give it a 4%. I don't know how much I would go with that, just because I don't want people's appetite for taking a hit. Now, 15 years down the road, who knows what's going to happen? We just have to find that fine line.
If I could respond, I hear what you're saying. However, at least since I've been on this council, we've held our residential tax increase rate to 2%, still having enacted asset management a number of years ago. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't know that the taxpayer even remembers what you just said. And I think that the responsible thing to do is to live up to the requirements of asset management.
I'm not denying that. Just we have to be careful about outlining.
All right. I think there's value in all of your comments, so let's try at the end to give a chance to everybody.
So a couple of questions, Jeff. in our 342,000 budget shortfall, is that to date or a per annum?
So that's
to date.
annually.
So every year we're short.
Yeah.
If everything stayed the same,
Yeah.
we're short an additional $340,000.
Yeah.
I think there's a political piece to that. If every year we're digging our whole potentially to our best information,
Yeah.
every year we're digging our whole $342,000 deeper.
Now, if I can mention one thing to that, because I think it's important, we can't rely on this, especially long term. We don't know what the environment looks like, but this does not consider utility focused grants either.
Right, and that was
Right,
going to
so
be my
it's,
next
it's
question.
not considering
Yeah, right.
grant funding,
Yeah.
and if you can have some level of comfort in 50-cent dollars, well, that number is dramatically different all of a sudden, if we were factoring it in. I've just always been loath to do that. Just in my time with the town, I've seen 0 grants, and then I've seen the boom and bust of the grant cycle too, so we've been very cautious not to just bank on it, but it's always in the back of our minds.
The one's way asset management doesn't take that
just
into
give
account.
me a chance to
Can I ask you
decide.
So that was going to be my second
Okay.
question,
Okay.
or assumption. And then my third question, back to the institutional. Do we, right now we have only 2 rates, is that correct? We have a residential and a non-residential?
We have residential, commercial, and institutional.
Because the institutional is
Correct.
separate from commercial.
Right now, actually, well, let me correct that, sorry, because it's on water, commercial, no, sorry, they are different. Yep, there's 3 distinct rates. I was looking at commercial and industrial, but no, commercial, residential, commercial, institutional are 3 rates separately, and they are different rates.
So back to the point I've made a couple of times, by and large, the institutional, they certainly don't pay direct taxes.
Right.
We do get a modest lump sum from the government for theirs, and then there's some that we never get anything other than utilities.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of weight to what Councillor Grainger said, and I agree also with your comments, but in my mind, we have to increase it somewhat. And I would, if we can increase it at different rates, I would be in favor of increasing the institutional rate more than the other two. For the reason that they don't contribute in any other way to having the road plowed, the light on in the corner, the 101 things that this community provides. Now they provide back, and we really value everything. Every one of those institutionals is there for a very good reason. But I don't think they carry their weight in the costs that the town puts up to support it. So I think it would be fair and appropriate if we're going to increase it, to increase the institutional at a different percentage.
So, Councillor, right now, we learned that the institutional represents 15.5% for sewer, 17.5% for water. So, if we were gauging it on what Councillor Grainger said, 4% or less, what would you see a fair increase over that? Would you say 6%? That would be quite a jump.
If I could ask Mayor, and maybe just so I'm clear on your comment too, the other way to look at this would be somewhat how you look at the budget, is to say, okay, we like to see 4% increased revenue in utilities. Okay, now we know our number we're shooting for, and now we can start to weigh it between the different types of properties, right? So we would come back with rate proposals to say, okay, in the 4%, which means it's X amount of dollars, institutional is seeing 7.5, residential is seeing 3. You know, we can play within that. If you have a kind of a number you'd like to achieve in overall revenue, we can go from there as potentially a good exercise.
Councillor Brown, Councillor Grainger.
No, my suggestion is exactly what Jeff said. I would like to throw this back to administration and have them give us estimates of what we're looking at before we jump through the hoop of deciding exactly what percentage it's going to be. I would like to see what the costs break down to.
the cost breakdown of what, Councillor?
Sorry, what I'm saying, whether it's 3%, 4%, just like what Jeff was saying, I would be in favor.
Okay. So, let me understand you. So, imagine we are setting a percentage. If it was 4% collectively, you would want to know what the impact on a ratepayer is. If
Yes.
it was 5%, you would like to know those breakdowns.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So maybe that is something, Jeff, that I think is doable. If we were to say, how many of you are feeling comfortable with 4% to begin with? That's maybe where the question is.
I'm okay with this piece.
I personally would not like to see
Right.
4%. That's just.
Okay, Councillor Brown, is 4% a bar that you could live with? At this
No.
point? No. So you want it less?
I mean, it's one of those yes but no's, right?
Okay.
Who's comfortable with it going up?
Well,
Do I
nobody is.
understand asset management? Of course I do. Am I comfortable with jacking it up? No.
Okay, so here we have to satisfy two things. One, we have to satisfy the asset management we cannot ignore. On the other hand, we also have to ascertain a political will to respond to our voters. And that's a responsibility we have. Jeff?
Go to Councillor.
Councillor Grainger?
I guess I'll reiterate again, we've been running with a roughly 4% residential as an average increase for the last 3 or 4 years.
Since 2017, Council. That's the average since 2017. Yeah.
So, they're used to that. Asset management makes sense for a whole pile of reasons that we've talked about a lot. We've kept our taxes down compared to all of our neighbors all around us at 2% or less. And utilities, I mean, you can't run the town without utility replacement. Maybe it's my background, but I mean, this is just one of the things that a council has to do is look to the future in terms of infrastructure replacement. And, it doesn't bother me, at the very least, to hold it where we've been holding it. And I think there's an argument, looking at these numbers, that every year goes by and we're not actually meeting the goals and the objectives of our asset management plan, because we're actually not charging enough because we haven't caught up. We're getting, as Jeff says, farther in the hole. So, and inflation is a fact of life, and I don't think it's irresponsible for all of these reasons to suggest some kind of a tax increase. A utility rate increase. I don't agree to keep it the same or to lower it. That would be even worse in my mind.
Okay. All right, you made your point. Everybody had a chance. Anybody else wants to talk? Councillor Kenley, you would prefer to see it.
I understand the asset management. I am a young person, and I know a lot of people that struggle, and I know it's a huge bills for them when we're talking about an extra $5 a month or something. But it hits hard for people that are struggling to make ends meet. And if I could speak frankly, those people they don't care about the asset management like we do. They don't care about. They're just trying to get by this year and not looking at 20 years down the road.
I care about can they pay their bills.
We care about assets. Some people that are struggling would rather keep that $20 a month to put towards groceries. That's all I'm saying.
Jeff, you wanted to say something?
Amen.
So going actually all the way back around, and thank you for all this, and you are illustrating distinctly the political versus mathematical debate of utilities, right? So I think all the way back to Councillor Brown's comments. So what I would appreciate from you, though, is at least a bit of a number to work towards, because, and then I would also appreciate if you had some priority, and I think I know what it is. So, for example, I'm not even recommending this number, but it's just a number. If you were to say, look, we'd like to see a 4% increase in utility revenues, fair enough. And it feels like we want to see that more heavily weighted in the institutional, also fair enough. Do you have a preference between commercial and residential, the weighting there, or should the rest be split evenly between those two? And now we can set to work giving you an idea of exactly what those rates will look like in every category.
That is a discussion we had quite a few years regarding that split between residential and commercial. And we always came back to the idea that in order to keep our businesses, we have to be careful not to overly burden them with utility rates that become too difficult for them to deal with. So right now, what is the breakdown, Jeff, if you know it? What is the rate difference between the residential and the commercial? Because I know the residential pays the bulk of the bill.
Are you talking about just the rate we have or total revenue?
Well, you can put it either way.
Sure. Okay. I'd have to do a little bit of math on the total revenue because our institutional and our budget is all mixed into it.
Right.
But, so I can give you an idea, residential, just so we're clear, residential is paying $28.10 monthly for a flat rate and $1.39 a cubic meter for consumption. Commercial and industrial are also, hold on, let me go into, so it is actually the same for commercial and industrial. You're paying the same rate.
So we changed that then.
Yeah.
Could I make a comment on this category? So, I haven't been on council before, twice before. Again, Jeff, it's the same discussion we were having 25 years ago.
Yeah, it hasn't changed too much.
So here's my view on the three categories. The residential, all of the tax, except for the odd landlord who doesn't live in our community, which is a pretty small number. They're all members of our community, and they pay all of the residential tax. In other words, they have to reach way down in their pocket and pull out 100% of whatever that number is. The commercial, if they stay in business, they will pass that expense to the customer. So then we have to ask, well, who are the customers? Well, most of them are from town, but a lot are from the county, a lot are from the other, the reserve, the tourists from Calgary, the tourists from Lethbridge. Every time they buy a bag of cornflakes and a jug of milk, they're helping pay that tax. So that's a shared tax, unlike the residential, which is 100% in their pocket. The third category, as I pointed out, don't pay any tax. Or if they do, it's some modest stipend that they send us, and we just hope the number is bigger than smaller. So to me, those are very distinct, and I think it's therefore appropriate to differentiate the rate because of who's paying it. I'm always happy to have somebody not in our community helping the thing. So that's how I would distinguish those three. So I think there's an argument to be made that the residential is a lower rate than the commercial, which is a lower rate than the institution.
Okay. So that was an interesting discussion. Thank you very much for your presentation.
I assume the assumption is whatever we increase ours, we pass on the county.
Oh, in the rate structure, yeah, we would factor all that in.
Yeah, institutional. Councillor Grainger.
I would agree with Councillor Burton's logic on the split. I guess it's a matter of working it out, but I don't know that we've answered the question.
Well,
if we see or agree, most of us agree that we shouldn't look at lowering the rates, and if we're going to increase them, status quo would be roughly 4%. And if we want to try and do better in terms of meeting the goals and objectives of our asset management plan, we need to increase it. I guess I could handle mentally and defend to the ratepayers, something like a 6 in round numbers. If you're looking for a range, but I agree that it should be, what you said, in the three different rates that still get us a little farther ahead in the game, in this asset management game, than we are doing now, because we're still following.
All right. So here is what we're going to do. We were starting to talk about that 4%. How many of you would like administration to look at the revenue sharing by all those categories under 4%, 5%, and maybe try to see what the impact is on the,
Where are you saying the total?
yeah, if we were to keep the increase at 4% a year, that seems to me a lot. 12% in 3 years, it's quite a chunk. We already went through about 20 and some odd percent because we thought we were so far behind. Yes, Councillor Grainger, it will not fix the whole need of the replacement, but it never will, no matter what, unless it rates the level that will be so exorbitant that you will have people chasing you out of council. So, you have an election coming. You have to be astute in determining and how you're going to present to the taxpayers the need for increased revenues. We agree we need to increase them, but how much is palatable?
Asking Jeff a question. Jeff, I apologize, I'm sure you've given me some of this before, but if we look at the aggregate revenue in on these utilities, what percentage is borne by each of those categories presently?
Right. So total,
just rough percentages.
Just have to do the math.
Let me grab it here.
In other words, if we make a little tick on a big category, it's a bigger number than generating.
Yeah, so like I said, your institutional is 15.5 on the sewer and 17.5 of the total in water. I brought this specifically for this question. So I'm going to do, this is somewhat rough math, but it's okay. So we have about 720,000 in what we'll call residential water billing into 1.25 million. So that's almost 70%.
It's a little bit more.
So I'm way high. Okay, so good 7.5 on that.
Yeah.
And then we've got about 294,000 of commercial into 1.25 million. And that should be roughly when we add all three of those. So that gives you some idea of the split.
So
we're similar, by the way.
Thank you. In response to your proposition of setting it forward, I would, could one of the numbers that you bring be 4 to the residents, 5 to commercial, and 6 to the institution, regardless of whatever other information comes back. In other words, keep the residential at the same 4% we've been averaging for the last how many years, but then bump up commercial 1 and institutional 2, just see that. Keep that varies.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say, how high what's the bracket we want to be. So 4 to 6%. Councillor Grainger.
I with bated breath wait to see what the numbers look like, but I would still argue that given that our regular municipal tax has been kept low for a number of years, and credit to previous councils and to you, Mayor Kronen, that's been an indicator of your time on council, and good on you and good on councils for doing that. We've already done what we can in terms of the biggest chunk that they have to pay, which is their municipal taxes. We're talking about utility rates, 4 or 5, 6%. I'm arguing that we need to boost that as much as we can. That's tolerable, I get that. But we still need to increase it. And the net result on a monthly or an annual cost to the household is still going to be way less than if we had a 4 or 5 or a 6% municipal tax increase like some of our neighbors, the surrounding communities have done. So we've already done a good job in terms of keeping our hand out of the residential pocket. But this is so important because if we weren't doing this, somebody 10 years from now, when we have to pay for, like on Main Street, $10 million bill to replace all those water mains in our infrastructure master plan, on just that part of Main Street, that one road in town. If we didn't do this, somebody 10 or 15 years from now, when those water mains collapse or, start to break or whatever, have to be replaced, much like our sewer plant is, they would say, what was wrong with that council in 2024 that they didn't put money aside for this when they had an asset management plan?
All right. Councillor Brown?
Councillor Grainger, I totally hear what you're saying. I feel like we could talk this to death, but I think we all agree that we need more information before we can go ahead and make a judgment call on this. I feel like we just need to, Jeff's already told us the direction he's looking for, because we've kind of, everyone at this table, I don't think anyone is comfortable making a huge, costing the taxpayers more. And honestly, for me, it has nothing to do with re-election. It's just a matter of sleeping at night knowing people can afford to turn their electricity on and eat food and live in the town of Cardston. So whether you run next time or not, that has nothing to do with it for me. It's just, I understand we need to put money into utilities and infrastructure and all things, but I also understand that we're always going to be running a deficit in those regards. Councillor, we just are. There's no way we can afford to put in the money into asset management like we should. That's just the way it is. So, I mean, I would like to direct administration to bring us back essentially what I just asked before. I would like to see the breakdown, and whether it's 4%, 5%, 6%, somewhere in there, 3%, I'd like to know what what it will actually cost the taxpayer, what we're looking at per home, per business, per institutional.
Councillor Brown, okay, thank you for that direction. There is something I would like to ask this council. Are you comfortable with the proposition of Councillor Burton regarding the idea to have the resident with a lesser percentage, the commercial with a higher, a three-tier rate, if you want to call it so? Are we okay with that notion? I see nods everywhere. So maybe that is already a direction for administration. 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, I don't know, but
okay.
That bracket kind of.
So again, keep in mind, there's no first reading even on the table yet.
Yeah,
You're
no.
not committed to anything.
No.
We haven't. We have good data on average users and the impact on every household of the average users, so we can manipulate that quite quickly. But yeah, this is good. I appreciate this. This is the kind of information I'm looking for. So we'll bring you back impact at user amounts of use in each category, so you can see how that impacts the users.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Council. It's never a pleasant thing to discuss, but it needs to be. And thank you for your frank discussion, because honestly, there's no wrong in any of the parties' discussion. There really isn't. There is different vision, that's all. So 5A.
Do we need to vote on that,
No.
Mayor?
I'll take it, Councillor.
No,
It's okay.
it's just information for Council. 5A1, ALCO franchise fee. That is something that I would suggest we don't touch. We leave it alone. It's a pass-through. Go ahead.
I will just say you have until tomorrow morning before we can't change it for next year. Administratively, I'm not recommending a change there either, but it is up to council. It's a different way to tax. So.
Right. Councillor Burton.
Jeff, can you help me understand this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So there are two groups of rates.
Yep.
And I remember we spent quite a bit of time putting us in the middle of the pack on the upper group.
Yeah, I'm just pulling that. I know what the table you're talking about.
We were the 25.
He's just pulling it out.
Yeah, just 1 second. me see if I can remember, by the way.
So when we looked at this before, I had averaged the whole thing, then we averaged the communities closest to us, and
Yeah.
kind of targeted where we were in the middle, and I'm comfortable that we did a good job with that. My question is, on the last page, there's another group of rates which are down in that kind of they range from 0 to 7 point something, if I remember correctly. I just want to have to read it.
So it is, and I won't explain this perfectly, but in essence, what it is, it's the percentage. It's the percentage of on top of the franchise fee that's paid in linear tax in the community. So ACCO also pays us linear tax on their assets in the community, and so they show this also to say, hey, we're collecting this franchise fee for you, and then we're also giving you X percent of that revenue is coming from linear tax.
So when I looked at this bottom rate, I just averaged Sterling, Grainger, Graff, Hill Spring, and Glenwood has one. I averaged those 7 communities, and we were below average.
Yeah. And I don't know if we have a lot of control over that, because it's just what taxable assets they have in the community.
Yeah.
Right, I don't have the great ability.
Is this a rate, or because the actual linear dimensions are independent of this rate?
So it's a rider that's applicable to residents and municipalities that receive a property tax under the MGA or receive specific costs which are not generally incurred by the company. So it's a percentage of gross revenue required to provide for tax payable, is what that number is. So in larger communities, it would be lower.
Yeah.
Because it's a percentage of total revenue needed to pay the taxes payable. So yeah, it would be lower the bigger the infrastructure in the community. That's why Glenwood would be 14%.
Yeah.
Because they can only average in their taxes on a very small amount.
Yeah, because I wondered why there was such a crazy range.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have had that a little better, but yes, that explains it fairly well, actually. It's a percentage of gross revenue required to pay tax.
So given that, we probably don't jump off the page.
No. So are we okay to keep the franchise fee at what it is? I see some nods here and there. Okay, we need a motion to...
If there's no motion, it stays status quo.
Okay, status quo, perfect, thank you. All right, let's go to 5B, bylaw 1643C. Joshua, now you can jump. Thank you for being there.
Yes, good evening, Council. This is
Public safety bylaw.
yes, so it's an amending bylaw that makes some changes to 2 existing bylaws on the books, and this is to request second and third reading. No changes have been made since the last time you looked at it. So to summarize, it rescinds bylaw 1615 and it amends bylaw 1643, and both of these were to remove the requirement for property owners to cover graffiti within 7 days and to handle all instances of graffiti just using the unsightly property bylaw.
Okay. All right, we had discussed that quite a lot last time, so I don't want to go through a full discussion, but go ahead, questions?
But I'm going to move second reading of bylaw 1643, the public safety bylaw, which is really an amending bylaw.
Good. Questions?
With that graffiti, I'm just wondering if 7 days is enough for someone to clean up the mess that someone else made.
But that's not.
That
is what is being removed, Councillor.
1643C.
This is what's being removed.
That's 7 days.
Oh, it is.
That is, okay. All right, we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, that's the second reading. Can we pass third reading? Somebody. Come on. Councillor Cole.
I will make a motion for third reading of bylaw 1643C, the
Thank
public
you.
safety bylaw amendment.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. All right, so this one passed. Thanks. All right, Joshua, you want to carry on with bylaw 1715? It says the assessment subclass bylaw.
Yeah, so we've discussed this quite a bit this year, and no changes have been made. Consultation with owners continues, and basically, as far as that consultation process, everything is out and done. And so we believe it's appropriate to consider third reading at this time. There's no changes to the bylaw.
Perfect, thanks. Third reading, somebody? Councillor Grainger?
I would move third reading of bylaw 1715, assessment subclass bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank
Yes.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Joshua. Okay, the draft policy C35, capital proposal policy, Jeff. It's a new policy.
Yes, so you looked at this at CCW. In fact, the name of it has changed since CCW.
Yes.
So we define that as capital project proposal policy. So that was changed, and committees were defined, and we did allow for other bodies that may be relevant to be consulted on the matter. So we kept the definition intentionally broad.
Yeah.
Just in case maybe economic development was going, we wanted that, or FCSS, or something, if there was a need to consult a different committee.
Councillor Burton, do you have a question?
So I wanted to retract something I said last time. So I had suggested that we use the same date as requests for.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I don't think it makes sense. There's no direct tie, because this is capital,
Yeah.
Yes.
those aren't, and this has to go with three-step process, and those don't. So I just retract that
Okay.
comment.
Thank you. Councillor Grainger.
Sorry, you've thrown me a curveball here, because when we talked about the committee, we were primarily considering the Parks and Rec committee, but you leaving it like that to be more generic, so that it would include something other than, or in addition to, the Parks and Rec.
When we were discussing this, we thought of, okay, what if there's a proposal, for example, where someone is seeking to build capital that could support FCSS programming, for example. What if it could support some type of public safety or emergency service planning, or like, there's just all kinds of scenarios where we
A
didn't.
new museum.
Yeah, we didn't want to just limit it.
You might be able to bring expertise from other committees that might be useful.
That was the
So,
intent.
if I can continue my question, so is the word committee inclusive enough, or should we say committee or board? Because of the FCSS example isn't a committee, it's a board.
We define that in the definition. It's a group, board, or other body established by council.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. You want to carry on, Jeff?
That's it.
That's it, okay.
Those are the only changes we made since you saw it at CCW. If you're
So-
comfortable with this, it's a one motion to approve the
Right.
policy.
Right. Councillor Grainger?
I would move that we approve, is this policy have a number?
C35.
I would move that we approve policy C35, capital proposal policy.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Oh my goodness, we're moving. All right, on the 6th, other business. So 6A is an interesting request, not unfamiliar to us. We had a couple other instances. So utility charge refund request. You will see there is a citizen in our town that was out of his house, and unfortunately a pipe broke in his basement, unbeknown to him, and flooded with very serious major damage to his house. The problem is not the damage to his house. The problem is the excess of water that was built for the period of time that the water was leaking without reason in his basement. So he had a bill of $311 for water, and asked if the town would consider to eliminate $200 of that $311. The way he came to that figure is by looking at the average monthly in the summer, and kind of realized $200 of excess water was paid because of the pipe breaking.
So if we allow this $200 to be forgiven, then who pays for that?
It's,
So what happens is we ask.
Is that the taxpayers, is that,
So
who pays for that?
NMAX does not remit that revenue to us, is what happens. So there is a cost for the production and the transport of that water, certainly. It's just borne generally by the utility. But what happens is we call NMAX gives them a credit and does not remit that money to us in our monthly remittances.
in other words, it's, I mean, you could say that you get so many revenue from NMAX, it's $200 less in the revenue. Does that mean that the taxpayers pay more? Well, yeah, if you want to call it like this.
We've had a number of these while we.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
We've had a number of these since I've been on the council, and it's always hard for me. The bylaw is quite clear. The bylaw states that unless it's negligence by the town or an error in the meter reading or something, that the individual homeowner is responsible because it's their house. And then, we forgive this, it's kind of playing on the heartstrings of us councillors because we're trying to be good guys, and I still have a tough time with this. So my question is this. Obviously, the damage to the guy's house is going to be paid in some fashion by his home insurance, correct? So is this not a legitimate cost like replacing wrecked drywall? Why isn't that cost payable by the insurance company?
I'm not sure.
Anyway,
Okay, thank you.
The bylaw is clear. Sorry, my point is, the bylaw is quite clear, and even though we have the ability to make an exception, it just seems every time we have one of these, we make an exception. Why don't we change the bylaw?
Well, because there are exceptions. Councillor Brown, you want to say something?
Actually, my question was asked, it was in regards to, would not insurance, house insurance, pay for part of this?
My experience is insurance companies tend not to pay anything. They absolutely have to. So my guess is, even though it seems perfectly logical that they would, they probably wouldn't. So two comments. One is when the Stanford home had a leak or broken line or whatever it was, if I recall correctly, we gave it time to pay, but I can't remember if we discounted the amount. We did? Okay.
Split.
So I think we have great conversations in the Burton home, but I had a conversation with my 19-year-old son this week, and he pointed out to me that in a community, it's not crazy for the government to act in effect as an insurer on unforeseeable loss. So if we say, well, this is, I was telling you his argument, I didn't completely agree with him, but there's some logic to it. So, for example, he said, just like an insurance company, we all pay premiums. One person gets the loss, the insurance company pays for it. Really, you just spread that amongst all the premium payers. He said, how is that different than when you have a government collecting tax, which is the equivalent of the premium, and somebody has an unforeseeable loss? This is directly related to us because we're the water providers. He said, wouldn't it be natural to treat it like an insurance that, yes, everybody pays 12 cents towards this? But it's a natural, everybody benefits by having, and it has to be unforeseeable, it has to be related to something the town provides. It's not a crazy argument.
So at the end of the day, what would you say then?
I'd probably do whatever we did with the Stanford son.
I'm amazed, if I can, to hear that kind of socialist thinking coming out of the councillor.
It was a vigorous discussion.
I mean, it's not going to break us.
That's his argument.
It's not a matter of breaking us. It's a matter, do you feel $200 is if you intend to help that person, is $200 too much? Is $150?
Well, what if it were 2,000? What's the principle that we're grasping?
Right. So what are we basing it on, right? And Councillor Grainger say you base it on a policy that you have, and you stick with it, but we have made it exceptions in the past, and so those create also another body of reference.
The example that was referenced a minute ago about the previous situations, I actually voted against that because there were extenuating circumstances. If you recall, the guy didn't check on his house. The house was vacant. A valve broke or something, and he didn't get back to it. He tried to blame the contractors in the house, all this stuff. And I was of the view that he could have done more to prevent the loss and the damage. In this case, I'm a little more sympathetic because, I think that it happened when they were on vacation, and how do you prevent that? Whereas the other one I thought was more preventable. So I guess I would be in favor of letting the guy off the hook, but I'm still kind of hung up on the wording of the bylaw that we just toss every time we get one of these.
Okay. Councillor Kenny.
I was fine with what they were talking about, and however that works, the maximum is $200.
Okay.
Not back.
All right. Let's not waste too much time on this for a solution.
Or whatever we do.
Okay. So, Councillor Brown, are you willing to forfeit the $200?
So I make a motion that we mitigate the $200 of the $311 from the Call family in result of their broken line water, following the same guidelines that we did a year or two ago with the Stanfords.
Okay. So there is a motion on the table. Any more comment? All in favor? All right. Done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Would this be a good time to say, should we look at that policy?
Okay, so Councillor Burton, that was something that I would suggest also, for the same reason that there is an interpretation in that policy that is a little bit difficult. It's maybe not clear enough, and we need to maybe clarify that, at least so that next council won't have to worry about it. Councillor Kenny.
I think I answered my question. This is our tax forgiveness bylaw fully different, correct?
Yes, correct. Okay? All right. Let's move on. Follow up from CCW. We have a letter that we wrote, that Jeff wrote on our behalf as we directed him to SWID.
At the time that I wrote it, I didn't have back from Mr. Levitt at Southwest Irrigation who the recipient should be. He sent me all that. I have a formal version of the letter here, if council's okay with it. And it's going to our MLA Joseph Scow, CC to the Ministry of Transportation, Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation, and Ministry of Environment.
Okay.
I move that we send that letter.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, the next one, 6B2, we have to rescind a motion, and that was Leo, who had previously asked council to put $2,000 or something like that, I think, into an account for the spading nutrient of the colony. But that money is no longer needed at this point because he has made different arrangements with the vet. Yes.
I'll make a motion to rescind to the 2024-151 for the June 11th, 2024.
Thank you. Councillor Grainger.
Related to this, I spent probably 2 hours going back and forth with one of the representatives from the town of Preston. She and Melody, they've got a new name for the group, something Pause. Yeah. Anyway, she's aware that we are not going to use the task force as we had originally proposed, $12,000. And she and I think Melody was at our last CCW meeting and observed our discussion. I just want to throw on the table or in the mix of this is that I guess they're hoping that, and they're talking about coming to see us as a delegation to see if some of those funds can be used for a similar purpose in terms of protecting the cats and looking at expanding the TNR program. So as of today, based on that conversation, they're aware that the funds are sitting there, originally motioned to be used for the task force, but they're going to come and ask us to consider using those funds for a similar purpose. And we talked about this, using Dr. Merkley as well as their group. So I wonder if the rescinding of this is premature until we see what they have to say, or we rescind it, but then look upon and maybe agree to continue to support them over the $2,500 per year that we already are supporting them. We have to find a similar amount of money or monies.
I think that without having a delegation come to council, we carry on with the rescinding. If we have to move funds, that will be in the general account, so it's not a difficult thing to do. Let's rescind it and then start fresh.
And the logic would be, because the 12,000 was quite specific to the task force funding.
It's because we're not
going to do that anymore, so therefore rescinding that is appropriate. And whatever they have to say to us coming up, that's a different animal.
It's a different thing. It's two different issues.
Okay.
Although it's the same kind of idea, it's a different issue.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the table. Are you in favor? Thank you
Yes.
very much. Okay, thanks. All right, follow up from the delegation. If you remember, we had Christy Gustavision who talked about the Waterton changes in their administration and what they are doing over there to preserve the environment. So, is there any more you would like to do?
I think our message was unavoidably clear. So I don't see any need to do anything more. I think if they're going to listen, they should listen. If they're not, they won't.
I agree. We suggested that they use dogs, sniffing dogs, for the votes and not carry on having a negative impact on our towns.
I sat through the same thing the next day at Alberta Southwest, exact same thing. Their opinion is very similar to what we said.
As was the county's.
Yeah, and so it is obvious that they need to start to listen to it.
Listening to that at our last meeting, we were all very polite, and I think we made some points as politely as we could. But I didn't get the impression that they were necessarily listening, that they've already got their minds made up, and this is a case of public consultation in terms of a government entity that's already decided what they're going to do. I wonder if we should write a letter to them.
Well, here is what I suggest. Right now, they're just in the middle of changing the superintendent. And she, at the end of her conversation, said that if she wanted them to come back, they'll be willing to come back. So let's give them a chance to reorganize their organization there and give a sense to the superintendent to understand what the issue is around here. And then I think next spring will be a good time before the summer starts to let them know, sniffing dog, please.
Before we renew our annual passes.
Exactly.
Reconstruction of the Crandall campground.
Yeah, exactly, that too. So let's try to figure out at that time that we're very willing to come. So let's give them that much. On the 6C2 Rock Alphas, that is the club that is trying to bring more wrestling into our town. Councillor?
I was just going to say I appreciated the presentation you gave us, I'm in favor of allowing the facility. His ask one, as long as there's no already book stuff, obviously, with calendars and whatnot. His second ask, I don't know if that's for us to decide yet, correct?
Right.
What was the second?
So the first ask
He applied to
was the facility,
Or
which
did
was
one-
a gym. The second one was really maybe seed money.
Yeah.
And then
Seed
my-
money under the community opportunity fund. We only have $900 in there or something like that. 500? I don't
And
know.
just,
Very low.
My third was, did he come to SDSS after? Oh.
Did he come and ask for some money?
I don't have a problem with, he didn't make a petition to the CSS yet, but, and I don't have a problem with letting him use the gym if he has money. I question, why doesn't the school?
It's not a school.
But he already explained that it's not a program. He explained that to us. We are requesting on that part. Councillor?
I thought we asked him, but
I did.
asked him what kind of dollar value he was asking for. I don't see that anywhere. Is there a dollar number that he's asking?
2,000.
Oh, it is 2,000. Okay. And we only got, in that fund, we only got $500 left.
Yeah, it's not very much.
I'll just mention, if you don't increase it at budget time next year, there'll be 580.
Yeah, okay, even less than what is.
But you have discretion at budget.
Councillor Brown, go ahead.
So, I guess I'm just wondering, at what point are we going to start to do the intake with the county? Like, this is my 100th year on council now, and we just keep talking about it and living our best lives, but we keep not going ahead and, we keep talking about policy and bylaws and what's the point of having this if we don't do it. Well, this one for me, like Councillor Kenley said, I have no problem with them using our facility. Great, I support that 110%. But I guess at what point, I was talking to a county councillor on a way to a meeting, and just in regards to when are we going to start working together, putting money aside, having an intake of whatever that is, and then actually put the money in together. Like, it just feels like they come to us, they ask them to go to the county and ask, and we say, well, what is the county going to give them? And the county says, well, what is the town? I just feel like, why aren't we working together? Y'all decide, y'all put that agreement together. When are we going to actually start using it in regards to this?
Councillor, you have an excellent question. As maybe a need of goodwill somewhere to come together and to be willing to put some money. We always have been willing to put the money in. That was always our intent. Maybe it's not received the same way on the other side.
Looks ICF meeting there.
It's not set.
Amen.
No, it's set.
So this is where the difficulty is. We always accepted to put some money. We even had an idea of how much money, but it never really went well together. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Well, I think it's time that we request a meeting, or just we send them an email. We request administration send an email in regards to this, just saying, between the two of us, we're getting the same applications coming and coming and coming. We would love to work together. I mean, we're all getting ready for the budget cycle. What a perfect opportunity would be to try and get this going forward. We put $1,000 in, you put $1,000. And then we can stop the trickling in of all of this. Ish.
Jeff, you want to address that? Can Jeff? Because he has a little bit more insight.
Well, no, just a couple of things. This is your Opportunities Initiative money. This isn't donations. Donations have a set intake at a set time. This isn't that. And so if you want to decline him on the Opportunities Initiative, you can certainly do that and send him through the donation stream. And then you can look at it through that too, and whether that's combined with the county. We have to work through that. It hasn't worked to this point. It's actually on, Murray and I have talked about it on the agenda for ICF.
Okay.
Real quick, the ICF legislation is changing dramatically, and the municipal affairs encourage us not to start renegotiating until the new legislation comes out. So that's partly why we kicked the meeting down the road. Well, I don't think that's what's happening, but yeah, just be clear, this was a request under Opportunities Initiative, which is different pot, and
so,
just look at it on that basis maybe.
So, Councillor Brown, I appreciate your interest in doing it through donation. Totally appreciate that. It would be maybe a better venue, but right now I don't think it will happen. I'm very positive, but reality hits whenever it hits. So the Opportunity Fund, when we establish a budget, we need to first of all bump that up for not only that person, but for other opportunities we have for people. And it's a nice thing, brings people in the community, it's a good thing. But is a concept something that you appreciate? The venue is an easy fix. It's a donation from the town. That's an easy fix. The other one is seed monies looking for, really looking to buy mats, buy all sorts of things, a capital investment program. So that's what you have to decide. Do you want to do that? Yes or no? Or does it go with the fees that you charge us? Go ahead.
And I think all of those things we can work out, but I wanted to echo Councillor Brown's concern about the county. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's the library, the chassis for the fire truck, or something like this, these kind of opportunities. We're always doing our part, and the county, if I can say it politely, is slipping. You know, our intergovernmental committee is one way to raise our concern, but maybe Councillor Brown is right. We should start pointedly in letters to the county saying, look, you guys aren't holding up your end of the deal, and we are, and we're losing opportunities.
Okay, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Brown.
So, with FCSS, I know a lot of times delegations come to us and we ask them, if we don't give you this money that you require, then what will you do? And quite often they all have other venues, and a lot of them say that they will get that they will go to the service clubs like Lions and Rotary, and LCSS doesn't have any more money. We spent it all up last week. So I think that maybe if he was channeled to those service clubs, that it might be a better way for him to get his money.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
So, sorry, Councillor Jensen, thank you. Jeff, how much money is left in this?
580.
Sorry?
580.
580 in 2025.
And nobody has applied for it this calendar year, is that correct?
No. You have
And so
it's fully spent in 2024. He's not asking for it in 2024. So
right.
Because it's a graduated grant and it comes off 20% a year, next year it frees up $580. Now again, you can set that account to whatever you want through budget. But with the current allocation, that'll be $580 in 2025.
So you don't have to make the decision right now. At budget time, you can look at it again differently.
So the way, sorry, Mayor, if I can.
Go ahead.
For me, the way I look at this is I am in full support of this because I love the idea of having that many people brought to the town of Cardston and that much money being brought into our local businesses. So I would like to make a motion that we support the Rob Barfus delegation for club wrestling tournament that they're having in August with the support of the building for the days that is needed, and for the amount of $500 to be given to them for out of that Opportunities Initiative grant.
Okay, so if you give him $580 in the first year, the second year you give him 20% less, the third year 20% less, so...
Yep, I understand.
I don't know if that's the right figures. Yes.
So I'm also generally in support of this. An observation, I wonder if we really should have made 2 applications. So the use of our facility would fall under the donation process, and the depreciating cash, whatever we call that account, would be for his cash.
I would support that idea.
So if, and I doubt if he's in an emergency for having, to knowing that that facility is available. So if we put that in our normal process, we could just photocopy it and stick it in. We don't have to have him come back. But, treat that along with everything else that we're doing, because like you said earlier, we should follow our policies as much as we can. And then, with respect to the cash, I'm just wondering, how much did we give the bike group, the race? Was that from the same account?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm just worried that, if we say, well, 500, that doesn't really get him there. It kind of leaves him in limbo. And I'd be in favor at budgeting time to bump that number up. Because I think these things like the race and wrestling that are kind of repeated long-term events that put us on somebody's map are good. So should we give him the 500 now and then look at the other 1,500 later, or should we just wait until we look it up? Or I just don't know what the practical thing to do.
Jeff just said the 2024 budget in that fund is used.
Right. I'm saying in the 25 budget.
2025.
Comes out of a different budget. I don't even know if we can say yes, you can have money out of the next budget that we haven't set yet. So I think.
Hey, could we maybe ask in the same way the grant funder did? Can you maybe do at least a spreadsheet of revenue and expenses? Do something like that. The grant funder already did it for us. What would be wrong with them kind of presenting something that will give us a sense where a source of revenue is? We have no idea. Shouldn't that be a requirement? You want money, at least give us something to see what you're doing. The grant funder did
I
it.
agree with that. I just know Mr. Barthas well enough that I'm sure he's probably already done that. So.
And I think, I know him too, but I think Council would be...
Probably be easy for him to produce it. He's probably already done it.
It would be a good thing, right? I think he can apply for the opportunity. I support the idea, but I think a little bit more due diligence would be nice. Yes. But you have a motion with a $580 attached to it.
No, I said 500.
Yeah, 500 over 4 years is end up by being so little.
But I'm not opposed to that. I was just wondering if it's sufficient and if we can line the next budget.
For a new event, it's maybe not enough. Councillor Brown?
So, Councillor Burton, I almost never vote against you. However, today's the day. You've been waiting for it. I disagree. I would love them to go shopping elsewhere for the rest of the funds, because I foresee that they will be able to get it. I think $500 is plenty when he's asking for, when he's getting the building and $500. I do not think we need to reach further in our pockets for any more than that. I think this is, we're doing our part. I would never, it is not my goal to talk badly about the county. I am confident the county will step forward and support them as well as other, community groups. But I think as far as the town goes, I am still firm on my $500 the opportunity grant. And if you want to separate the rental of the building as separate, I'm fine with that. But for now, I would say I support the $500 to come from the initiative. And I mean, period. That's it.
I won't argue that.
Okay.
I do have the question, though.
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, that if we don't have anything in that account now, we either have to transfer it, if we're approving it today, we have to transfer it from somewhere else. In other words, we have to move the shells around, or not. Can we bind the next budget and we have zero in that account?
Because you're not...
And just a question, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
no, I don't know, it's not a clear answer, is what I'm stammering about here. Is that you're not expecting to, well, we're not expending this until the next fiscal year. So...
And I don't know that we can do that without having...
Yeah, we don't even have it in the budget, right?
It may not even...
Yeah.
We may deplete that account.
If you reduce the budget on that account by 500 next year, you won't have the funds.
Right, that's my concern.
Yes, that's true.
So in principle, I agree.
Okay.
But what we could do is we could transfer 500 from somewhere else into the 24 account and then put it back in the next budget if we chose to do so. I'm just trying to make Councillor Brown's motion work.
Repeat the motion and do it on January 2nd.
Yeah, or you pass it in your first meeting in January. Yeah.
Councillor Brown, would you make an amendment possible to your motion to approve the use of the gym and to review the opportunity funding in next year?
I would love to, Mayor. What she said. I nailed it. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Because that would solve the issue and we wouldn't have to transfer nothing.
No, I mean, clearly, we shouldn't be talking about it if we can't make a motion in support of it. I didn't even thank you for picking up on that, Councillor Burton. So, yeah, what the mayor said.
All right. So
what I'm hearing, there's still a motion on the table. But
Yeah,
it's
we
amended,
could-
Councillor Brown,
we
to say that
amended.
this is going to be on in an agenda in 2025 for
Correct,
formal
yeah.
approval.
yeah.
Clearly, that's what I said.
Okay. All in favor? Thank
Yes.
you. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, any questions for administration at this point? I hope you all have given your slips to
I
the
have
administration.
So, as my neighbor walked her puppy past my house a couple days ago, and my dog ran up to meet her dog at the house, she told me that she'd been walking by the creek, and a stray dog who had puppies had attacked her, and her dog bit her twice. And that was, I think, the day after, or 2 days after, just a few days anyway, after you were here telling us that we couldn't collect any more dogs because there were dogs who had puppies and our strays. Like, it all sounded just really bad. That you know, our policy has allowed her to be bitten twice and her dog attacked. I really don't think that policy is working. What could I say to her? Yeah, in fact, that just came up in council. You know, we were all aware of the fact that we've got strays of puppies who apparently attack people and the dogs because there's no room in the inn. So, anyway, that's as recent as a couple days ago. And she did say that she called the town, so you may have heard about that. Anyway, we just can't have a policy that, not intentionally, but the result of which is that we've got dogs who are known to be strays attacking and biting people. I just can't be the right policy.
I don't disagree with your comment. I wish we had a solution, but the solution
Well,
is...
maybe we can find one. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that because it's timely and topical.
Yeah. All right, thank you for your comment. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Councillor. Those are concerned. If we cannot protect our citizens, we're not doing our job. And I agree. So let's go on the 9, correspondence. Susan Amen, Lethbridgeport Council. So that is an interesting request. There is someone who is kind of putting together the history of the basketball in southern Alberta, especially for the high school teams. And I think Councillor Forty will be such a perfect representative for our council, if you so wish.
Here's my problem.
Oh, you have a problem. Good
October
grief.
17th is my wife's birthday, so unless I can talk her into going to this.
Oh, you know what? Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I would talk to her, because I know Ken Hamilton quite well, so I know all these people quite well.
Okay. Well, you try to
Let
sweet
me
talk
talk to
her.
her and see what else she wants to do on her
If he
birthday.
can't go, I can go. So.
Good. Okay, so
Okay,
here you
that's
go.
good to hear.
We just, if I might, we meet our RSVP in the next 2 days.
Yeah.
So please let me know right away.
Make sure Carol's working and you can go.
She's her birthday. She won't be working, it's her birthday.
All right. Next one, Festival of Lights Committee. You can see they are looking on November 15 to have a big splash in the town. And they would like to kick off the event with maybe the town having a float like we've had during the parade. Wouldn't it be fun to have the one that the electrical department did?
Are we doing fireworks?
Yeah.
So, but essentially here, what they're asking for is what kind of participation does the town wants to do? Could be a float, could be the barrel with the fire, could be whatever. Whatever they did in the past worked.
City of Whitehorse had a similar thing in 1 year, and then it carried on for a number of years after the first time, is they decked out one of their garbage trucks in Christmas lights, and one of the public works staff drove the truck dressed up as Santa Claus. I throw that out. It was really, really popular with kids to see in the parade.
Ours is privately owned.
I know, you know.
But we have the electrical with the bucket, and that
Yeah.
would be a lot of
So
fun.
anyway, I just want to say that that was immensely popular. Kids loved it to see the garbage truck decked out in Christmas lights.
Yeah.
I like the fire on Main Street that we've talked about.
Right.
Bonfires. I like that.
And then the hot chocolate and all that stuff. Councillor Brown, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, this question more is for Jeff. It's my understanding that between the Public Works and our electrical department, they volunteer and put a lot of hours into this Festival of Lights. I think we should just continue to do. I mean, the mayor and a few of the Blood Tribe councillors last year was in the Remington carriage, and I was helping at the parade with emergency services and just helping. I mean, I think if we just do what we've been doing in years past, that's definitely enough, I would think.
Yeah.
And the fireworks this year on top of that, I think the town is needing thing for the workers to do.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Should we just confirm to her that we're going to do all of that?
Yeah,
Would that be helpful?
I think they know all that, but yeah, I can
Okay.
talk to Shirley, yeah.
Yeah.
Mary, just related to that, what's the date for our policy on donations? Is that November something?
You can take a look, Councillor.
What I'm wondering is, would it be
I thought it was in September.
practically prudent of us to just send out one more email or one more letter to all these groups saying, hey, we know we sent you 2 letters before, but this year we really are sticking to our policy, and here's our date? I don't know. Like, we've already made a list. It'd be an easy thing to just give them a little poke, wouldn't it?
Well, they're not running to council for money, so that's
Right.
not a good
This
thing.
just made me think of that, that that's coming up.
Good. All right, the next 2 items, it's regarding the floodplain maps, the new maps. And you're going to find it rather fascinating. Some landowners are not so happy because they are in the floodplain. So maybe, and part of the town engineers, So if Jeff, you can put it up.
Well, I was just gonna ask you, you've had the links, you've had the ability to go through it. If you want, I can bring it up and show you through the new flood mapping, but again, you have the same exact links I do. This is all public facing now. So it's up to you. If you want me to bring it up on this little TV here, we can. Or you can mess around with it in the comfort of your home. It's up to you guys.
I think it's a very good map. It's interesting. I think we have started that process asking for that when there was the last big flood, and I was really advocating for new maps at the time, because I could see that some development along the creek were going to most likely be in that floodplain, and the map showed that.
There,
Yes.
I knew it was there, and I know how to get through the list, but I didn't take the time to look at it.
Well, let's look at that, and if you want more questions, just ask Jeff to kind of zoom at you.
Jeff, can I give them the happy news about from environment?
Rock showed up at your house today?
Well, we're starting, so that work we want to do in the creek got approved as an extension past August 31st, and we're starting on it, so that's
Well, I'm
a lot of
happy
years
for you.
coming, and it makes me and the fire hall and everybody else who's going to fall into the creek really happy.
And just DFO
Oh.
last night, too.
Yeah, everything's good. Well,
Yeah, good. All right, thank you. Then you have under E, Kenyaton, Alberta municipalities, pretty well the last letter as the rep for small communities in southern Alberta.
I want to know if anyone knows who won the counts, so.
Well, you can go on the others. I mean, I did not look, honestly. No. There were three people, 2 female and 1 male. Yes.
Mayor, would it not be appropriate to send her a thank you letter in regards to representing us so well these last 4 years?
Yes, and I did that personally at the conference, but I think a letter from this council would be a very nice thing to do. Thank you.
Do you want me to make that motion?
Do motion? Yes.
I make a motion to direct administration to write a thank you card on behalf of council to Tanya Thorne in regards to all of her work and her representation for us with Alberta municipalities over the years.
She did a fabulous job. She was very excellent.
Yeah.
All in favor? Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Under F, Honorable Rick McIver, Alberta Municipal Affairs. Now that is a very interesting ask. The minister wants to know what's the impact of the carbon tax on our budget.
Sure.
And Jeff was going to kind of look into it. We know that in the past we had a little bit of a study done a few years back regarding the impact. There was a definite impact. It was in the 200,000 at that time. I don't know what it is today.
So are we, Jeff, will we be looking at direct or indirect? So, for example, the cost of our lunch we get here has carbon tax built into it at about 4 different levels or 5 before it ever hits our table. So I wonder what we want. Like, some is obvious, you know, here's what our fuel charge is and this percentage is that.
Yeah, I think it's
We're
more
providing the search, we're just providing the carbon tax portions on fuel, utilities, and those kind of things. There isn't enough time or resources to drill down on that secondary stuff.
direct. Really
Yeah,
direct.
we're just taking utility bills,
Might have
fuel
one
bills.
sentence that says,
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of other stuff.
We had that exact conversation, Councillor, is how much are we drilling down the pure later bill?
Yeah.
Are we, you know, how much are we doing? So we're gonna take the low hanging fruit for now.
But does it impact us? Yes, big chunk.
And the letter doesn't actually say, but what would the Alberta government do with that information? Just
And
throw it
collecting.
back at the fence?
They're collecting data. That's what they're doing right now. And you can be sure that collecting data is to be able to make a case at a higher level of government. Okay,
This rules, I really want to know the town south representative, Scott Ackerman.
okay, so
Right
that,
now, yeah.
Of Coldhurst.
yeah, that was the person that Tanya thought might be a very good rep for us. So I'm glad he got it. From Coldhurst, yes. Okay. This concludes the public portion of our meeting. We are going to go into confidential session now. We have a land lease and intermunicipal matters. And I want to thank the media, Channel 32 and Mary Valier for Temple City South. Thank you so much